I actually didn't dub myself that because I think that would be a little conceited. But I've been through a tremendous amount of transitions myself. And I didn't actually even recognize that I'd gone through that many transitions until I went through my gender transition. And once that happened, I had to stop and take a look, because you get into a place when you're going through a transition and it can get really, really messy. And I like structure and I need process and I love patterns. So I started looking through all of this, and it's when I recognized all my other transitions. And so I started to study those. And then I did a bunch of interviews with almost 200 people to find out what their patterns were when they were going into a transition, what actually got them to go over the line into the transition, what happened to them when they got there, how many people actually turned back and went back to their old comfort zones, and then how many people actually followed it through. And the surprising part that happens at the very end when people think they're done. So I got a chance to do a lot of studying with people, and I found a tremendous number of things that actually changed my mind about personal development, because I'd been teaching personal development for years. But then I got into this situation that was just like world shaking, and I couldn't just set a goal, have a positive attitude, and take massive action. That just wouldn't have worked. So I got dubbed the transition specialist by one of my clients, who said, with everybody that you've trained, thousands of people, hundreds of businesses, and coached executives, he goes, you're just a transition specialist. It was just kind of a throwaway, and I went, oh, that's kind of interesting. So we put it out there, and people really loved it. And it helped them to get some idea that maybe transitions aren't as scary. Maybe there is patterns and a science to it. I had a really incredible male life, and I was very successful, CEO of businesses, traveling all over the world, speaking, training sales team, all this incredible stuff. And so when I made the decision to transition, I really didn't know what I'd actually gone through in my previous male life. So I started, boom, into my transition. And all of a sudden I went, oh, this is not good. I had tons of questions, but there were no answers. Doctors don't know what it is. So psychologists said, oh, we'll take it. It must be a mental thing. And so they try and push you into this little box that says, this is what happens in a transition. And they really give you some really poor information about what to do with it. And so that happened to me initially. I was using a number of hormones and medications to actually transition chemically the body from male to female, and it made me super sick. And a lot of people go into depression and all kinds of different things. So all of these challenges that I was having with it actually caused me to look at it and go, wait a minute, you know what, my degrees are in biology, nutrition, and nursing. I've studied genetics, I've studied, behavioral biology, all these different things. And what they're telling me to do is counterintuitive to what I really believe I should be doing. So I went off of hormones completely, because I thought, am I female or am I this little pill? So after studying and understanding conflict, I found transition phase and started really looking at it, and I realized that there were three selves, that you've got your body, you've got your mind, and then you've got your spirit mind. I call it spirit mind because it's the next level of mind, and people don't really like the word spirit. They give up a really big part of what they can do to grow. And so I created that, and then I started looking around and I realized what scared the crap out of me, about going into transition, and it was the world. because the world is so big and it's so scary, and it tries to dictate and push so much on us as individuals into our life anymore. And so I started to create this safe area called my world. And in my world, I started to study what really makes up a world. And so in a world, you only have three things: your choices, your relations with things, situations, people, and then you've got experiences. All three of them are measurable, okay? And we give two of them away so easily. We give up our power to choose all the time. And so therefore, we're not really good at making decisions. But when you do that, okay, you also lose your opportunities. And so I started to create my world. So here I am, I'm cruising through this now, right? Woohoo! I've got conflict down, I understand transition. And then I start looking at transformation, and I start talking to people who'd actually been in serious situations, women going through menopause, people who've actually had illness, people with depression, people going through nervous breakdowns, people who've had serious things happen to them. And the most interesting thing was that transformation didn't mean, okay, I'm through with everything, I'm done, now I just go ahead and start living. It meant the beginning. It meant that now I start as a beginner, and then I move to apprentice, and then I move to maybe a little bit of an expert, and I keep growing from there. And what I found is that that's the only way. You're reintegrating in that phase. And that's what happens in transformation, is reintegration. And then once you've actually started to learn that, you can actually have an effect on the world. That's where you can affect change for other people, but you can't do it until you've done it for yourself. I think by the end of this, you're going to see that I'm pretty much a contrarian. I tell my clients, and when I'm speaking to groups of people, everybody's talking about the speed of change. We haven't changed in forever. Change hasn't changed, okay? We have put so much pressure on ourselves to change that I tell my clients, slow down. When you slow down, you can make choices. When you slow down, you can see things clearly. Let as many people as want to run by you, run by. They want to spend millions on social media, let them. Pull back away from it. They want to do tons of marketing, let them. Build a database and serve the clients that you've got greatly. Go to your current clients and ask them what other products they'd like to have, what else they'd like to do. Talk to your team and find out, how can we actually slow down? We don't have processes for success. And we have all these things that we call process, but they're usually word of mouth, and that's called a practice. And so what I teach my clients is 5 things. You have to have a vision, okay? And if you have a vision, most people don't even know what a vision is. A vision is a goal that you will never achieve, but you are always striving to go after and doing it better and better and better. That's a vision. And you put your vision, you use it to measure every part of your business. Just doing that will slow you down. You'll stop trying to do thousands of things and actually do tens or hundreds far better. And it just gets you to focus. We've lost our focus anymore. And we think that if we do more, if we go faster, we're going to get better results. Well, it's not true. We can't keep up with the speed of technology. So don't. Use the technology that we have to the best of your ability, and guess what? Clients will love you for it. You want to know why? It's really simple. Because clients are moving slow. The only thing that's moving fast is the speed at which we're trying to dictate the world to go. Change the word. Avoid it, procrastinate. Typically, and because there are 4 different types of transition, there's normal life transition, which we are talking about, but then you've got imposed transitions, and imposed transitions typically means that you've gone past the use by date. Stayed too long in a relationship, stayed too long at a job, and then bang, you get hit with something. But in all of my interviews, asking people a single question, if you went back 6 months to a year prior to the change being imposed on you, did you know something was coming? Invariably, the answer was yes. Okay, so what we do is we mask change. We hide from it. We're afraid of it. We see it as the new nemesis for the new generation. Instead of seeing it as something we can affect, control, how we can use it to change our experiences, because we don't work on ourselves really, okay? And so that's a big part of it. So people don't work on themselves and they separate themselves from change even further. So if you're afraid of something, you're not going to go run headlong into it. Change, we've actually, we associate that with risk. We associate it with uncertainty. We do not associate it with something that we can see or know prior. We don't think there's knowledge to the things that are going to change. We think change happens to us. But my belief has become that change happens to you, change happens through you, but change always happens for you, and then from you. Yeah, I actually, I did a presentation yesterday, and the woman that was speaking before me was going kind of chronologically through her presentation and her life. And she was so inspiring. And I'm sitting there listening to her, and I thought, my gosh, I don't think that I'm inspiring at all, as I was sitting there listening to her. And then I started getting like this, just, I guess a little bit of an anxiety attack, because I was like, I've been going through this for 6 years. And I've never thought of myself as courageous or brave. I've thought of myself as a survivor because I got to 79 cents in the bank. And I attempted suicide at one point. But I feel like a survivor. I didn't feel courageous or brave. And this happened to me yesterday, but right before I'm ready to go on speaking, it was terrible. And I realized that I never thought of myself as inspirational, that again, I was just living and I was creating patterns and creating this system so that I could actually survive. And so that my son who was living with me wouldn't see his dad become his authentic self and then end up on the streets as an end result for that. And it just paralyzed me. And I'm so blessed that this happened to me, because I also realized that at the level that I was playing as an international speaker and twice published author, if I would have just kept going in that life, I would have had, incredible success. But I would have just been another preacher up on the stage talking about all this crap and trying to sell products to people instead of actually saying to people, this is me. This is what you do when things get real. Not when you want to set a goal or have a positive attitude, And all of that just hit me. And my presentation just slid out of me. And so I actually have to now, because of that, learn to trust myself at a different level. This is part of my reintegration. One other thing I'll tell you, a lot of people don't do this. I've stepped back across the gender line because I wanted to test what was real and what's not. And so my 2 children didn't talk to me, my 2 oldest, for over 3 years, almost 4. And so I stepped back over and I learned to meet people one-to-one and say, how does this affect you? How do you feel about it? And how could we actually get back in touch and actually have our lives back together? Because my kids were always someone that made me rich, very wealthy. I was so proud of my children, still am. So I met my daughter and she told me her answers, and she said, well, why can't I call you dad? Why can't I say, you're my dad, you live female, and your name is Joe? I said, is that what you want to do? She's like, yes. I said, well, then let's do that. I'm okay with that. And she just didn't think that I would be. I learned such a powerful lesson just from that, because you learn how powerful communication is. And if she would have actually had that conversation with me 4 years ago, I would have actually gotten to see my grandson a year ago instead of only 6 months ago. And so, you know, communication is so powerful. And so those are the two really big shifts that are happening in my life right now. And I love testing myself, and a lot of people don't put themselves on the line the way I do. But if they did, they would actually lose their fears. And I'm not fearless, believe me, I'm still afraid of sharks and my ex-wife, so. Intelligent, because it's how I feel about living as yourself. You should always live as you know. And what it taught me was that I wasn't trusting my body. Your body is about feeling. Emotions happen in the brain. Emotions are repetitive. You create emotions. Just the same way you can fabricate or create memories, you use imagination on both of those, and you stimulate emotions to grow. It's like repetition, right? But I realized that I wasn't trusting my feelings, because I almost transitioned when I was 29, and a couple things happened that weren't very conducive to me making the decision. But when it came time again, and my internal self said, well, are you going to listen this time? Are we going to do it? And all I could say was, yes, let's go. And immediately there's a connection between your body, mind, and spirit, and you feel this wholeness within you. And when you feel something like that, if you don't act on it, well, there's a lot of words I could use to describe not doing that. But luckily, I was intelligent enough that I followed it. Probably that I felt as successful with 79 cents in the bank as I did when I had a tremendous amount of money. And that I got so much more resourceful, and I learned to leave everything that belongs in the external world and only bring it in when I want. That includes opinions, it includes money, energy, other people's rules, laws, and all those different things. Because here's what I will tell you. If you take and you put a ship in water, it will float. But if you take water and put it in a ship, it will sink. We're the same way. And the external world is the water. And so you can drown really easy, sitting right here, if you let enough external crap in. Because I've reintegrated myself quite a bit, and I'm to the point where even sitting with my ex-wife last week, she said, you are so much more balanced between who you were and who you were actually learning yourself to be. So there's a lot of peace within me now, which feels really good, because you stop going for happiness and you start looking for meaning. Okay, especially I just turned 59 a couple days ago, and you're looking for meaning, because happiness comes and goes, but when you find a meaning, you can always use that to continue to grow. So now that I'm coming out of that and going to the point where I can now start to affect change and show other people how to make their world solid and exciting, and then show them how to reintegrate back into the world, that's very exciting to me. I wish that I could have found a way, this is going to be very personal, I wish that I could have found a way to remember that my family and friends in the world did not know that I knew since I was very small about my transition. I knew I was female forever. And I didn't tell them. And then when I got the opportunity to actually transition, I went. I went. And the thing that I wish I would have done is I wish I would have stopped. And I wish I would have told them, I'm really sorry, but I have to go. I wish I would have stopped and told them that I loved them, you know, because they couldn't support me when I did that because they didn't know. It sounded like I just sent a shockwave through my world. So I wish that I would have been able to be more upfront with them. That would have actually been amazing, because if I could have thrown a funeral for my boy self, I would have given my family a lot of comfort in a time when I caused them so much pain. And I didn't mean to. Yeah, that would be it.